Welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. I'm gonna do something a little different today. I was checking this out. I've been doing some pickling and some fermenting and stuff with peppers, and did some cowboy candy, which I'm definitely gonna be doing some of that again, but I didn't do it on video. This time I will. But I wanna ferment some things with beer, or at least age them, should we say, or pickle them with beer. So what we're doing today is a sweet and spicy IPA dill pickles. Gonna have a little dill in it, not much, but a little bit. What I did, I don't grow cucumbers, and probably most people don't. I just went and bought these. They're a little expensive, so if you can get it like a local farmer's market, it'd be a lot cheaper. They're just real small cucumbers designed mainly for making pickles. And they're a little expensive. I want to say about $3 a pound, so hopefully a lot cheaper at a farmer's market. Mandolin, or whatever you want to call this thing, so we can slice them up nice. But what we're going to be doing is basically the recipe, and I'll make sure to post it below, is 2 pounds of pickling cucumbers, a cup of apple cider vinegar. We have that. We got food fight game on there, so that way kind of appropriate. Got a 1/3 cup of sugar. Some of the recipes out there called for a little more, like almost a 1/2 cup per 2 pounds, or even more, even a pound, which is insane. I don't want them to be crazy sweet. I just want them to be nice and sweet. Got 1½ of pickling salt. Same salt I use when I'm doing my brewing salts. 1 teaspoon of celery seed, got that. 2 1/4 teaspoons of black peppercorns and mustard seeds, we have those. 12-ounce IPA, well, I want to go for a good IPA. It's kind of a shame to put it in this, but I can enjoy snacking on it technically. Cigar City's Guarana. Very, very big Citra IPA. I think it's all Citra if I remember right. It's considered a pale ale, not really an IPA, but it's what we're going for. 1/2 cup of crushed ice. They just add that at the end because you're gonna have to boil some of this stuff, or at least get it up to a nice simmer to sterilize everything. So the ice is to help drop the temperature. 4 sprigs of fresh dill, 3 cloves of garlic, and a sliced jalapeno, which I'm gonna do something with some cowboy candy, so I don't wanna use up my jalapenos since I don't have that many of them. So instead I got these Thai hot peppers that I've been growing, and they've got some nice heat to them. I'm gonna drop about 2 of those in per mason jar, 16-ounce mason jar. The other thing I'm gonna do a little different is when we're starting to boil up, I'm using this little, I don't know what you call it, tea, simmering, whatever you want to call it, steeping bag. And I got 0.15 of fresh Citra hops, or dried Citra hops, sorry. I also took out any excess leaves, stems, things like that, just so I can shove them all in there. I'm gonna let that simmer a little bit towards the end, just so we can get a little more Citra. I want a lot of Citra mixed in there, with a little bit of heat, a little bit, yeah, we got a lot going on. And also a sprig of dill in there, some garlic. Gonna be a little crazy. We'll see how it comes out. I'm expecting good things. So let's get going. Okay, got the mason jars here. We just want to sterilize them. Just be careful not to burn yourself. Water's almost boiling. I'm not too worried about this getting me hotter. I like to do this with the lids, hold them so that way I can get them back out easier. They're a pain in the neck otherwise. Not someone who does any kind of major canning or jarring or anything you want to call it, but I'm told not to leave those in the hot water very long at all. You can damage the little rubber seals. Feel free to leave me a comment if that's different, because I also watch the canning systems and I get it just short of boiling. Okay. Okay, we want to get this to a medium-high heat. And I'm pouring the beer in first because I want to get rid of that carbonation. And heat will help get rid of the carbonation. Every drop. There's our apple cider vinegar. Drop a cup of that in there. Okay, that's starting to warm up there. Something I forgot to mention is you want to cut the tips off of any of them where either it's ugly. Some of them you can leave one end on, but it's where the stem was. It's best to cut it off. Got ahead of myself, it got hot. Just gonna toss the dill in here, and this is about what it's looking like. So, and all of that is nicely cleaned and put into the sterile jar. So, a couple sprigs. We'll go from there. Okay, I didn't realize a sprig is actually almost the entire stem, so I put a lot more dill back in. Let's get this going and get this finished up. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put the hops in there. That's what I was talking about. Basically make a little tea, a little hop tea in there. I'm looking at this liquid and the amount of stuff we have in there. I don't think we have enough. Just saying. I'm gonna go ahead and dump the salt. There's that carbonation we gotta get rid of. Peppercorns, mustard seed, celery salt. We don't want that to burn, so a nice little stir, hold onto our chain. Worst case, if it's not enough liquid, we can always add a little more liquid. Probably should have done this without the extra stuff added. That's okay. Just simmering it, not doing anything nuts. Okay, don't want it to boil, so I'm gonna turn it down. I'm gonna say it's probably had enough contact on there. Get some of our celery seed back. So I'm gonna, oh, I gotta cool this down. Almost forgot, important part. That'll add more liquid to it. It's about a half a cup of crushed ice. It's a lot easier to measure than chunks of ice. Let's get it off the burner too. As you can probably tell, I have not done this before. But you live and you learn. It's a little hot, but this will also help sterilize everything. Not sure if I'm supposed to serve it hot or cold, but that's okay. Okay, we're gonna dump it in here so I can pour it a little easier. As you can see, I put the little Thai hot peppers in there. And I am not going to can these. I'm going to put tops on them and put them in the refrigerator and let them sit for a few weeks before I try them. Too much pepper over there, but that's okay. Okay, they say you can top it off with either vinegar or vinegar and water or water, so we're just going to put a little more apple cider vinegar on top. We'll bring it all the way up to the top. There we go. And just like a keg, I'm gonna roll this around a little bit after I get the lids on and give it some time to sit and stew, per se. Now with it being warm, I am gonna close it because when it gets cold in the fridge, it's gonna contract. And these should be nice and snug, so I don't have to worry about anything. But like I said, there we go. You can see some bubbles, but I don't see any real carbonation, which is cool. Okay, let's see how I can do the other one here. Okay, and I'll agitate them a little bit each day, probably once or twice a day. Probably twice, knowing me. And there they go. We'll put them in the fridge, see how they come out, and do a little taste test video at the end. Okay, these are the sweet and spicy IPA dill pickles. They've been sitting in my fridge for 2 weeks, and they look really good. This one, I don't think I put quite as many, or I didn't pack it as tight. This one a little bit more so. So, giving one to my son, so I'll give him the one that looks a little more on the full side. Fork, gotta have a fork. If I remember right, we used Cigar City's Pale Ale, technically, but it had a lot of Citra. Okay, nice and sealed. There we go. We're still pretty hot when we put the lid on. It smells really good, I'll tell you that. Oh yeah. And I was afraid that it wasn't gonna have a lot of heat because of the two Taiwan hot peppers, or Thai hot peppers. But it's got a nice little tang or burn to it. What I'm thinking about doing harvested 2 more jalapenos. Gotta clean those up, slice them up, shove one in there. Keep the heat up, although that second one had a little more heat to it. Let me see if I can bring this up a little closer for you. Sadly, there's no smell-o-vision on YouTube, but it smells really nice. You can smell the IPA, you can smell the vinegar. You can definitely smell a little bit of the dill since I put it across the top, and I have been kind of shaking them every other day, every 2 or 3 days. But those are gonna go fast. Especially if we do some hamburgers here soon, I'll kind of smother the top and bottom of them. I'm not too worried. I'm gonna give my son the other jar tonight. So, thank you again for joining Bitter Reality Brewing. I'll make sure I put the recipe down below. Don't forget, go ahead, subscribe, like. Yeah, you wonder what this is? I got another big old carboy I gotta bring over here. I gotta transfer some beer. Those are 2 other videos, and we just finished cleaning this up from another video we just did earlier today. We did a red velvet stout. So, looking forward to that. It's gonna be a nice stout with a red velvet, kind of like red velvet cake stout. It'll be good either way. Sitting at about 7%. If it ferments out properly, of course. Thank you again for joining us at Bitter Reality Brewing.